1863, Virginia. In a Union Army tent, Surgeon William Hammond stands anxiously at his desk. A young soldier stands before him. The soldier has no visible wounds, just a swollen cheek, and he can no longer breathe. In the Civil War of 1863, tooth infections claimed the lives of 3 soldiers. It's easy to understand why a tooth could be a matter of life and death in 1863. No antibiotics, no sterile environment. More importantly, no real surgeon. But what happens when the collapse begins? When the collapse begins, the same thing happens, only in a more advanced yet collapsed world. I'm Burrow, survival expert. Today I'm going to share a man's story with you. His name doesn't matter. What matters is this: he did everything right before the collapse. He had water. He had food. He had defensive gear against an invasion. He had a plan. But there was one thing he didn't know, and that one thing cost him dearly. Day 152 after the collapse, Virginia. The first 2 weeks after the system collapsed were the most chaotic. The streets were filled with noise and uncertainty. But by the 30th day, a new order had been established for most of the survivors. Resources were known. Dangers were known. Routines had settled in. The situation was the same for this man. They were surviving as a group of 4. They had a water filtration system and a medical kit that most people would envy. Even as the days passed, they were at least able to meet their water needs and basic health requirements. Until the 152nd day. On the morning of the 152nd day, the man felt a heaviness on the left side of his face. It wasn't exactly pain. It was more of a sensation of pressure, a minor discomfort that came and went. He drank some water and carried on. That was his first mistake, because that discomfort was something he had been putting off for 2 years. His back left molar. It had needed a crown for years. He kept putting it off for a week at a time, then for a month, then life got busy. It even crossed his mind 2 days before the collapse. He thought he'd go the next day, and then the collapse happened. Now he had no chance to get the crown, and the tooth remained there, waiting. Day 153. The pressure on the left side of his face had turned into pain. Real pain. A slight swelling had started on his left cheek. Swallowing was uncomfortable. The painkillers in his first aid kit worked, but only for a few hours. Let me tell you what was going on in his mouth. The bacteria that had reached the root of the man's tooth found a perfect environment: warm, dark, oxygen-free, and most importantly, there was no environment to prevent the microorganisms from multiplying. Moreover, even if they did multiply, there was nothing to reduce their numbers. The man's body is trying to surround the bacteria. It's forming a barrier. That's why there's swelling, pressure, and heat. But the barrier isn't a cure. The barrier is just buying time. And this man's time is running out. He looked into the emergency medical kit. Tourniquet, Band-Aid, wound closure strips. Everything needed for a gunshot wound was in the kit. But there was nothing for a tooth infection. Now I'm going to lay out a timeline for you. Within the first 3 days, you'll experience pain and mild swelling. An abscess forms. Bacteria accumulate around the root. At this point, if there's a way to stop them, you might get through it. Maybe. If there's no solution between 3 and 5 days, the bacteria become active. They spread from tissue to tissue. They reach the bone. The face swells noticeably. The fever is high. One side of your mouth is no longer functional. And the most critical thing, he can no longer make sound decisions, because the pain is casting a fog over his brain. When fever, pain, and sleep deprivation come together, the brain begins to shut down. The reflexes to flee from danger are dulled. The instinct to protect the group weakens. Physically, he may still be alive, but operationally, he is finished. None of the survival tools he possesses offer any advantage, because he doesn't have a healthy enough brain to even consider using them. Every nerve cell in his brain is focused on the pain swelling his left cheek. Between the 7th and 10th days, the infection reaches its peak. As the infection progresses, serious conditions like Ludwig's angina may arise. In this case, swelling under the tongue and around the throat, difficulty swallowing, and breathing difficulties may occur. If left untreated, it can pose life-threatening risks. Medical statistics show that untreated cases carry a high risk of complications. A bacterial infection in the area under the tongue and around the throat. It swells from the inside. Swallowing becomes impossible. Breathing becomes difficult, 50 to 90%. This isn't a dramatic statement. It's a medical statistic. If a tooth infection goes untreated long enough, it means a 50-50 chance of death. Surgeon Hammond knew this in 1863. Your man didn't, day 155. The man could no longer stand up. The swelling had spread from his jaw down to his neck. A fever over 104 degrees kept him from standing. He hadn't eaten in 2 days because swallowing was painful. The group was terrified. They opened the first aid kit again. They found some painkillers. They gave them to the man. To ease his pain, they had him rinse his mouth with boiling water. It worked for 11 minutes. The infection didn't respond. The group made a decision. They would carry him. They would find something somewhere. They set out at 4 o'clock. After walking 3 blocks, the man could no longer walk. They had to leave their large bags behind to carry him. You can fill in the rest of that story on your own. Now I'll tell you what you need to do. 3 layers: pre-collapse, preparation, and worst-case scenario. First layer. Simple, but most people still don't do it. Get that tooth fixed now. You know which tooth I'm talking about. The one you've been putting off for 2 years. The one that reminds you of itself with pain every now and then forgets itself once the pain goes away. Because every untreated dental problem leads to a crisis 30 days after the system fails. Second tier. Supply list. First and foremost, antibiotics. Talk to your dentist immediately. Never try to choose and take an antibiotic on your own. This isn't a beverage. It's not something you can just pick based on its flavor. Ask your doctor which antibiotic you should use for treatment if you need it and have no one else to turn to. The second item on the list is pain management and temporary repair. Clove oil, eugenol. This is the active ingredient in dental anesthetics. You can find it at the pharmacy. It's included in the Red Cross toothache kit. Apply it to the tooth with a small piece of cotton. It numbs the area. It doesn't treat the problem, but it keeps you functional. Temporary filling material. Dentemp. Cavit. $8 at any pharmacy. If a filling falls out or a crown breaks, you seal it. You block the direct path for bacteria to reach the root. This simple step could have bought your guy another 3 weeks. Dental mirror and probe. Basic. Cheap. In a group scenario, one person should be able to look into another's mouth. If an abscess is close to the surface, it can be detected early. Detecting it early means a completely different timeline. Third layer. Infection has started. You have no antibiotics. Let me be honest. Layer 3 isn't a treatment. It's about buying time. Clove oil for pain. If you have clean water, rinse your mouth. Eat something your immune system needs fuel. After the collapse, the group's top priority should be one thing: finding a medication to stop the bacteria from spreading to the tooth root. Not secondary, primary. Because at that point, nothing else matters. This man had food. He had water filtration. He had a plan for the group's safety. If he'd been able to go to the dentist once in the 2 years before the collapse, or if he'd had two $15 items in his first aid kit, none of this would matter, because he'd still be here. The threats coming your way don't always announce themselves. Some have been lurking in your mouth for 2 years. Now you know about one of them. One more thing before you close the video. Is there a tooth you've been putting off right now? How many months have you been putting it off? Mention it in the comments. I'll read them all. What do you think of the seemingly minor but actually very important issues that might arise after the collapse? In the next video, 40% of people can't see more than 10 feet without corrective lenses. The collapse is happening. Glasses are breaking. No one is talking about what happens next.